Having a deck full of only dynamic glyph cards that can appear in any slot can get very chaotic to play. Also, while dynamic glyphs have many advantages over static glyphs, their obvious disadvantage is that they are not always available when one needs them. This disadvantage can be more extreme for some glyphs, such as heals, than others, such as attack glyphs. Shroud of the Avatar gives us some options to help control the chaos of dynamic glyphs, and also build decks that combine both approaches to glyphs. In the dynamic deck we made already, we left the hand completely empty. If we drag a stone arrow glyph onto slot 3, it will become a static glyph. However, notice the little lock symbol that just appeared. If we unlock slot 3, then this slot will no longer represent a static glyph and will begin as empty when we enter combat. Our cards will draw as normal and the first 2 will be placed in slots 1 and 2, as long as they are not stone arrow cards. When we get to slot 3, the card will only go into this slot if it represents a stone arrow glyph. If not, slot 3 will be skipped and the next card will go into slot 4. Opening the deck window back up, I will now drag a stone fist onto slot 3. Notice that this time the stone arrow doesn't get replaced, as it would if it were a static glyph. Instead, the stone fist glyph gets placed behind the stone arrow glyph. Now cards that represent either stone fist or stone arrow will be allowed to occupy slot 3, but no other cards can go there. This ability to constrain the slots available to different glyphs can help reduce the chaotic nature of dynamic decks. However, you must be careful because it will now be possible to draw cards and have nowhere to put them even if you have empty slots. In general, when a dynamic glyph card is drawn, it looks for an empty slot which is specifically reserved for it, starting from the left. If it fails to find such a slot, it then looks for an empty slot which can accept any dynamic glyph, again starting from the left. If this fails as well, the card is shuffled back into the deck and you've lost your ability to gain a card on that draw, which slows the rate of cards flowing into your hand. We can also design our decks so that they are a mix between dynamic and static glyphs. Each static glyph can guarantee that you have a critical ability when the time comes for it, but reduces the amount of slots available for the dynamic glyphs, thus reducing their flexibility. Much of the art of deck building involves finding the correct balance between these two for your given build. I would like to close the section on the mechanics of deck building in this tutorial series with a brief discussion of 2 special glyphs that relate directly to decks built from dynamic glyph cards. They are Mind Wipe and Mind Lock, found in the focus tree. Mind Wipe allows one to clear all dynamic glyph cards from their hand and redraw all the slots immediately. It can be useful if you have a lot of dynamic slots and you want to fill them as soon as you enter combat. However, the game currently puts any such cards discarded this way on cooldown. A couple applications of Mind Wipe can quickly run your entire deck out of cards. Hopefully this will change in the future and Mind Wipe will become more useful at shuffling the cards in your hand. Mind Lock pauses the decay timer for all dynamic cards currently in your hand for a duration of 20 seconds. We will discuss Mind Lock in detail later in this series.